Howdy, folks. It's Murph, and welcome to this special edition of Storytime. Cue the music! Oh, wait. We don't have the rights to the music yet. Well, if we did, you'd hear music right there. So, welcome to Storytime. We are here at Murph's Studio South. And what we're going to do today is do a little recap of Chapter 1. Since we're all done with the 7 episodes of Chapter 1, figured we would kind of recap what's going on, talk a little bit about the lands and Murph's Storytime and how it all came about. But to do so, I need some help. So, I'd like to introduce my little bro, Tim.
Howdy.
Hi, Tim.
Meow.
Meow. So, Tim's going to help me out here by asking questions that have been sent in. And maybe some of his own questions. And we'll try not to fight like we did when we were growing up. But just going to have a good old time. So, talking all about the lands. Chapter 1, Something is Happening. All 7 episodes. So, hopefully you've watched them. And you
better have.
Yeah. All 3 of you who have,
Yeah.
we need 1 more. It'd be nice. 2 more. 5 would be cool. Anywho.
Well, 5 ain't a round number.
No, it's not.
6.
There you go. 10.
Find a phone a friend.
I only need like 968 more subscribers and 2,970 more views. Anyways, let's get started. Recap of Chapter 1 of the lands.
All right. So I guess we should start from the beginning.
Okay.
How did the lands come about?
So, do we have 2 days? Because really, that's how long it's going to take. This will have to definitely be a shortened version.
As long-winded as you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the lands came about as a kind of a joke when I was working at Disneyland and things were happening, and I thought, well, we could do like a little parody or a little satire of the situation. So I wrote some stuff out and created some characters, and I let some people read it, and they really liked it. And then, the more I was writing it, people would be like, oh, what's going to happen? What are they doing? What's happening here? And I realized, I have no idea. I'm just like writing things, And so it got a little more serious and then a little more serious. And over time, I would stop writing and then I would go back to writing. But the idea was always that you've had these lands that interacted with each other, that, were their own entities, but far away, but they were kind of also together. And as the story grew, then this concept of the spirit came in. So that was really kind of the idea of these different types of lands, and then the citizens within them that made them what they were, but also how they interacted with each other. So that's really how it started. And I've said it before on the videos. It's over 30 years. It's probably gone through 6 different phases from what I originally wrote. But really, there's always kind of been that core to it. So that was the brief answer.
See, I told you, long-winded. Yeah. Oh, make it quick. Yeah. So I know over 30 years since I've known you for 58.
Mm-hmm.
You are a Disney geek.
Mm-hmm.
When Star Wars came out, you weren't very much of a Star Wars, but you were a Star Wars nerd.
Yeah, I got all the little action figures.
You had all the action figures. So I know. What was your biggest inspiration? Disney or Lucas?
Oh, Disney, absolutely. Lucas said a lot. The Star Wars is in the story, but Disney is definitely the bigger influence on even a lot of things that I do. There's always that concept.
I knew that.
I worked at Disneyland over 20 years, so it's kind of hard.
I knew that was your answer.
Of course he did.
He had Disney stuff all over. We used to have to share a room.
TMI,
It was his room.
Not a Disney.
I got like a corner.
He's lucky to get that.
Yeah, that was.
Anywho.
All right.
Anyway.
So, in your writing process, did you establish rules or guidelines when it comes to writing a story and putting it together? And if so, what?
Yes, actually, there were more guidelines because, you don't necessarily always follow the guidelines. The rules you have to follow. Guidelines, And so when I first started writing it, one of the guidelines I had, one of the things I really wanted to do was, because the young man that shows up in Hubland is really kind of core to the whole thing, the beginning and end of every chapter had to be about the young man. And so that's how it was as I was progressing. And then when I had to break the chapters up, each episode had to start and end something about the young man.
But he sleeps all the
And
time.
he does. I mean, what a life, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
God.
But as the episodes, I had to keep breaking them up. It got a lot more difficult to do that. So there are some episodes that either don't start or do not end with the young man. But that was one guideline I had. The other was, that the music, I wanted certain music cues to be for certain citizens or certain storylines, and that got a little more difficult. Characters had to be, I had very strict guidelines on what characters could and could not do because they all had, most of them had backstories that I had to make sure they follow along the lines with. So, then as I began doing the Murph Storytime, one of the ideas that I'm kind of following now is each episode has an object in it, kind of hidden around, and even in this edition of Murph Storytime, all the episodic objects are hidden in the video here. See if you can find them.
Where are they?
And each episode, like when I introduce the episode of the lands, it always starts with a 1 and a 2,
and away we go.
That's a little nod to a band that I like, or something that they say before one of my favorite songs. And then, of course, each episode ends with "Keep the Spirit Alive," because that's very important.
You got there before I could.
Yeah. And I do try to keep like Murph Storytime separate from the lands, because the idea is at some point to introduce more stories to Murph Storytime. So,
see, and he had a guideline at the start of this of time, as you can see.
I break that.
That's gone.
One rule I do follow though: copyright.
Yeah.
Gotta follow. That's one you gotta.
You gotta.
They'll take all my money, all my profits, all
this be negative.
all
down,
$0.
down here somewhere.
Man.
Yeah. Okay.
All
so
right, let's move along.
What citizens in the land do you relate the most with, besides the bald guy?
The bald guy. There are no. Oh wait, no. There's a lot of bald guys in it. It seems like that. Why do you think that is? Well, definitely not the Duck Moran.
Yeah.
I love the character, but that's not who I would relate. I'd like to say Maddog because it's such a cool character, but not really who I would relate with.
The old man.
The old man on the ledge. No, I
He
think
sees
I think the one. I mean, as I don't
Drake.
know. Definitely not Drake. I think Jess Donner probably, only because I'm always worried about everything and I'm kind of a control freak. So I think that Jess Donner would be one that kind of course, every character has a little bit of me. When I'm writing it, there's things about me in each of those characters. So, I mean, it's kind of unfair to say Jess Donner's the only one, but I think most of them I can relate to, but he's one that's kind of a little more like me, I would suppose. At least now, there's a lot of citizens you're going to meet in a little bit, in different chapters. A lot of citizens still to come. So,
So, has the popularity? Speaking of you liking Maddog, but being more like Jess Donner, has the popularity of a certain citizen, such as Maddog, redirected your original storyline? And if so, how?
Well, definitely Maddog, considering Maddog was not in the original story. So I've talked about the, writing it for so long, having the original story and everything. Maddog wasn't in that. And then when I realized I kind of wanted a character like that and I created Maddog, it just kind of became a whole refocus. There was no Mahone. So, as stories evolve and you start thinking more about, okay, what's really going on here and what's the backstory, what's the history, and Maddog and Mahone became important characters. Maddog, probably more than any character, shifted the direction of the story, because now it even starts with it. Because I had someone say to me when I was finding it difficult to start, how do you start the story? Someone said, just go with your best favorite character, and that was Maddog. So yeah, another one, a story that I really like is Merle. You just kind of met him, But that's a good story. And Grimmer is another really good story. He has a great backstory, and he's kind of changed some stuff. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good things to come. Keep listening.
Yeah.
But Maddog really probably has made the most difference.
So going back to the one that you see yourself the most as, now, this is a shocker.
Okay.
Why haven't we seen Jess, Donner, and Gary since episode 1? What happened to them? If he's you would be all over the place.
Well, they're old. They went to sleep. You know, they needed their.
So he
beauty
is
sleep.
like you.
Yeah. That's funny because Jess and Gary actually weren't supposed to show up until later chapters, really. But when things started to change, I was having readings and comments were kind of like, "Hey, we don't know what's really happening. Why they keep talking about the spirit dying, but how do we know? What's the proof there?" So I kind of had to write a scene between Jess and Gary because they are two older guys and they're in tune with the spirit. I think in explaining what's going on, and I kind of used a little bit of there was a TV show that was on that they used to end the episode with two guys out on the porch, like drinking whiskey or brandy and smoking a cigar, and I thought, I kind of like that, and these are two friends, so I kind of felt like they would do that. They would again the citizens. Would it be in their nature to do this? And these two guys would do that because they're good enough friends.
So bad.
I know. Don't say it because I don't want to get in trouble. But yeah, so that's why they've kind of disappeared. They're in that first episode. Just say they went to bed. You'll see them later. They just, had to go night. They're old, like me.
So, are you happy with chapter 1?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not how it originally started, and I think people made good points about there needing to be more explanation, and as explanations, as I realized, okay, this could grow, and then I could take advantage of certain situations. That the first episode, I know I've heard it. It's long, it's almost hour and a half, hour 29. But my one of my guidelines was that each episode had to have like some follow through with the storyline or some sort of action, and definitely a hook at the end where people would say, well, now I got to tune in to listen to it. And I didn't, in episode 1, I just really couldn't find the place to do that. And so,
because you're long-winded.
Yeah, well,
you
and
don't know how to be quiet.
There's a lot. No, that's not true. But anyways, there's a lot to go on. There was a lot being done in that episode. I had to establish a lot of different storylines. So, but otherwise, yeah, I feel pretty good. I love the ending to it. It's one of my favorites. Writing it, I'm like, okay, just episode 7, and you kind of see where like episode 6 feeds into 7. There's a lot of things build into it. So, yeah, I'm happy with it. I'm glad it's done. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of headaches. But as I work on chapter 2 now, which is releasing soon, that's exciting. That's very exciting. That chapter 2, episode 8 and 9, they're good. So, yeah.
So this one's kind of a little close to me. In the first episode, Maddog slams the NLA, the Neutral Lands Army, even though Army is, they aren't ready to be Marines yet. Insulting Sarge. Are they really that bad?
No. Again, that's understanding Maddog. Maddog is a needler. He wants to poke people. So he knew that was going to get to Sarge, right? Because he and Sarge have known each other for a long time. So he knew it was going to get to her. The Neutral Lands Army is, they got a big task to do. There's a lot that they have to do. And they're kind of limited as well as what they could do. And Maddog being part of the Gang of Five, there was always kind of like a little bit of headbutting between the Neutral Lands Army or the NLA and the Gang of Five. So no, he doesn't hate them. He just enjoys saying that. Plus, there's a little Easter egg in there that I had to. Actually, that whole thing was written around this little Easter egg, little one-liner type thing that I wanted to get in the story. So I wrote that little dialogue there just that little tidbit. Sometimes that's what happens, right? You have an idea and it's like, well, how can I put that idea in the story? And then you keep working, and then you find the right place and you're like, here it is. Maddog.
Okay. Speaking of find the right place, let's start talking a little bit about the lands themselves.
Okay. Yeah.
Are the lands close together, or are they miles and miles apart? How?
Yeah.
Where are they?
You know, the lands they're far enough away where you can't see the other lands from the land you're in, right? So like if you're in Merchant Valley, the kingdom is across from you. It's far enough away where you're not going to see the castle. It's not like you could walk to it in an hour, but it's not like super far away where you have to, take a plane or something. So it is.
It's not a horse-drawn trolley ride. But
Well, you could, but the trolley doesn't go to. It's funny you say that because that's an idea that I have. It's like, should the trolley be able to go to all the different places? I don't know. But no, I mean, you can get to another land, a couple of hours if you're like on a horse or something, or maybe even less than an hour. In fact, the NLA patrol, they have their runs and they have to go from Hubland to and back. So, you're able to do that, but they're not so close. In fact, it's talked about how you can see the different lands from the Splashing Red Rock, or you can see it from the Big White Mountain. So you can see them, but you kind of have to be up high. You wouldn't be able to see them from the individual lands. So I didn't want them to be right next to each other, and they're much bigger than they're kind of described.
Speaking of the NL, since you brought it up with the NLA going into. Why can't the NLA, the Neutral Lands Army, go into the lands? Do they just roam around the neutral lands all day, all night?
Like
just
circle.
They're on the merry-go-round. That's why.
Again, one of those. So goes back to, and they kind of. I'm pretty sure in episode 1. They talk a little bit about that it used to be, the Gang of Five were in charge of keeping the peace amongst the lands. And the Neutral Lands Army were just kind of in charge of patrolling. And really, their task is to keep outsiders from going into the lands. So they don't just patrol Hubland. That Neutral Lands just aren't in the center there. They're also on the outsides of the land. So like they mention, Ava and Peter kind of joke about the house. And the houses are on the outside part of the land, keeping them protected from people coming in. Not so that no one can come in, but just to keep invaders from it. So they do more than just patrol the Hubland neutral lands. There's a lot more to it. So no, they don't just ride around in circles, on their runs.
Sounds like that's all they can do.
Yeah.
So speaking of the house,
no mouse.
Are there more areas that lands that you have not introduced yet?
Yes. Well, we kind of talk about, the old man on the ledge. It's referred to the jungle and the tribe, obviously. You haven't really introduced that. And some of the lands that you have been introduced to, I haven't really gone much into, like, Merchant Valley, there's more to that. And, even Techland. We talk about the Orbitron. We talk about the control room and the carousel building where Director Jacalian is. But there's so much more in Techland. We really just kind of talked about Orleans and Western Territories and the kingdom. But there's still more that haven't been really described. The town, we haven't, we've only kind of insinuated towards it. So there is more to see, and even within the lands that you do know about, there's more to see there.
So you brought up in that last long-winded answer about the old man's dream. In the old man's dream, he goes where he has a dinosaur chasing him.
Yes.
The primeval world in the dream. Is that going to be in episode 2? Is that you going to elaborate more? Is that where a certain dinosaur just sits in?
Well, in his dream, during that sequence where people are experiencing different stuff, in his dream, the train's heading towards a lagoon, and then it makes a hard right and goes by the train station and then into a tunnel, and the next thing we know, the train's kind of going down some stairs. So it does go through maybe a familiar area for a lot of people. But yeah, that's one of the things I do. A lot of the things I do is I foreshadow stuff. So that is something that comes into play later on that haunts his past, the old man's past. They say that a lot of stuff that is written isn't just to be there. There's always a reason for it, and that's one of the reasons for it. Also, his dream was to kind of introduce you to different parts of the land by taking a train trip. Sound familiar?
Ooh.
Yeah.
So with that, the whole, foreshadowing, all that kind of stuff, and you've already kind of mentioned the Easter eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Are there a lot of Easter eggs and inside jokes, one-liners, stuff that you worked into this?
Absolutely. Lots of Easter eggs, lots of one-liners, lots of references to different TV shows and movies. One of the things I would like to do is kind of do a game for each episode to try to find them. Of course, like I said, we have the objects, and the one-liners are a big thing as well, and some really big inside jokes that make me laugh. So, yeah.
And I do catch some of them.
Yes, you do. You're someone who kind of is tuned into a little bit of those Easter eggs, and that's good. That's one of the reasons for it. Writing it was kind of like a little nudge type thing. It's like, hey, remember this? This is a
nudge.
Well, I did bring up, I think, the fact that in
If
one
you know
scene there was in one episode there's like references to old attractions and stuff. So yeah, yep, a lot of those.
All right, talk about the old attraction. Let's get into the different areas in the lands.
The land, yeah, okay.
So since it seems like a lot of this is kind of taking place at Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about Orleans, the characters that are, the citizens that are primarily there in Orleans, like Maddog, Drake, who's awesome.
You say that.
Mahone, Doc Moran.
Yes.
Let's talk
Yes.
a little bit about more.
So, when Maddog kind of became a focus, and I knew that we wanted to do kind of the backstory that Mahone had left, the best place to have that happen was in Orleans because it was along the riverbank, and he can kind of be on his horse, and and that he spends his time gambling. So Orleans kind of seemed like the right place to start it, and it gave an opportunity for me to introduce some side characters and also where they are. Like you got Catman, who has restaurants in different lands, so he was able to kind of talk about that. And you had Doc Moran, who's a retired doctor, so there must be something there. He and Maddog kind of had a little back and forth. Sal being the witch doctor, so that, and there was also some references towards the jungle there. Big O and Lady Fuller from the Western Territories, so it was just an opportunity around that table to kind of, and around the table is always a good time to talk, for some of these stories to kind of be introduced, or at least some of the lands, and the idea of Orleans just being a fun place, but there's some seriousness there as well. Jess and Gary are there. River's Edge Terrace is on the outskirts of Orleans, and then you've got Jess and Gary, who were kind of in the heart, the older part of Orleans, and then you have the young man Adam who thinks he's going to cash in on getting Maddog. So I just thought that was a good place to kind of have a lot of action going on. There's a lot there.
So we mentioned Maddog a lot.
Maddog, a lot, yeah.
Why did Maddog take Gonzo's treasure?
Who says he did?
Oh.
Who says he did? Maybe Gonzo just thinks he did, or who knows?
He took it.
You never know.
Maddog's
At some point you'll find out. You got to keep listening.
So, and another person in Orleans who's just an awesome dude. Why doesn't Drake talk? Why didn't you give Drake?
He's got nothing to say. His actions are his
words.
words. Yes. Again, I don't know. That's just a character guideline I came up with that Drake doesn't talk. I just thought it was cool that he just kind of can intimidate with his eyes, and and people take him serious. They don't want to mess around.
When they notice him.
Yeah, when they notice him, right, when they notice him. So yeah, he's a fun character. So
So did Drake or Maddog steal the little pocket watch clicker clacker from Techland?
no, the pocket watch is kind of a leftover from the Gang of Five. So the Gang of Five had a lot of different contraptions and stuff that they used. So that was a way of them communicating. So yeah, it and the same person who developed the technology in Techland developed that technology. So yeah, the little pocket watch communicators.
There you go. All right, so moving on from Orleans, let's talk about someone that you hit on, then just kind of let them fizzle out of our memory for a little bit. Pirate's Lair with Captain Marley and Marguerite and Mouse.
Yeah, so Captain Marley's storyline is also one I can relate to, I guess.
Comes out of that head.
Yeah. So I knew doing like history and backstory, Captain Marley was kind of a figure that is talked about. So I wanted there to be another version of him, I guess, like a realer version. So Marley being in the Pirate's Lair and just drinking a lot and hanging out there, I thought was good. And I liked the character Marguerite. She's a salty one. I think I don't know if I say that or not, because that's always on my mind. And Mouse, I had to introduce Mouse somewhere, so I thought that would be a good place where you have Captain Marley, who's kind of always out of it, and Mouse suddenly appearing. So, and I wanted the idea of the pirates being, I mean, it's in Orleans, so I was focusing a lot on Orleans at the time. And I thought, okay, so yeah, let's bring, and you'll see more of Marley. Marley makes another appearance a little bit later, so he's not done.
And Mouse.
Mouse, yeah, Mouse is pretty important.
Right on.
Yep.
All right, so moving on from the Pirate's Lair, we are going to move a little bit, I guess, south. The Western Territories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk about Gonzo Chale.
Chale!
And Grimmer Sheriff Bob.
Yeah.
And Mr. Matthews.
So, you need to have a bad guy, right? And when it came to kind of putting the story together, I figured Western Territories would be a good place to have a bad guy because it's a little lawless. And I just love that idea of Gonzo owning everything and his attitude and quick temper and everything. So
typical robber baron.
Yeah. Exactly. Wants everything. Yep. Very greedy. And yeah, so that was kind of where I wanted. Okay, I want a bad guy to be in Merchant Valley. This would be a good place to have it. And then kind of creating that thing with him and Maddog. And Mr. Matthews was a character that wasn't supposed to show up until much later, but I kind of, when story started to get pushed out because I was doing more in chapter 1, I introduced Mr. Matthews a little earlier than normal. So, but yeah, Gonzo's a good character. Grimmer's a good character. That's like I said, his story kind of grew and grew from just being a gunslinger. You're going to find out a lot more about him. So, but their story about Gonzo wanting more money from the tribe, so they're going to have to sell all their goods in his store. That there's kind of something about that greediness of that's how companies work sometimes. Like, well, you need to pay us.
Greediness.
Yep. You're going to have to pay us now. You're going to have to pay me in order to sell your goods here. So I thought that was... And that story changed where there used to be a mayor. The mayor was the one that he was telling to write it. And then I thought, well, the mayor went to the sheriff to do it. Why not just get rid of the mayor and just have the sheriff be the one to do it? So...
Okay, so on that note, that brings another question. Since you said that. Is there a character that was originally in the story that now isn't?
I guess the mayor. The mayor was just kind of redundant, I felt, and I didn't see anywhere where that character would go. So yeah, I got rid of him. I did change some characters in that. This is a long story. I'll try to keep short. I was watching an award show, and one of the actresses who won for either supporting actress or best actress, whatever, had made a comment about writers need to write more roles for women. And I was like, oh man, what is all this, right? And I'm thinking, the character is a character is a character. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I have some characters that could actually don't have to be men. I could make and that was Sarge.
Sarge.
Yep. Ava, another one in the Newfoundland's army. So I was like, that's true. You can have women could play those parts easily, and then that made a whole new world for Sarge. It's like, oh, this will be fun because she can play off of Maddog, right? So it was like,
once again, something revolves back to Maddog.
Yeah, yep. But yeah, usually I don't try to get rid of characters. For the most part, every character that I've written has stayed in except for the mayor.
All right, so kind of circling back to the Western Territories, Gonzo really seems to dislike Maddog. Here we go with Maddog again.
Yep.
Is there more to the story than just the treasure?
Yeah, that's again part of that backstory that we're going to get to with Gonzo and Maddog. There's a lot more to that, and that was the other fun thing. It's like, and I hope people pick up on that there's just a strong animosity, but there's also a bit of, it's Maddog poking the bear, liking to piss people off, and he's done that to Gonzo, and so there is a lot of backstory to the Western Territories, especially. I mean, there's characters you'll meet in Chapter 2. There's a lot more people in the Western Territories, definitely.
So you brought up Mr. Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he used to be Gonzo's henchman.
Correct.
What happened to him?
So
why is he?
He has a great story as well of kind of coming to an understanding of things, and so I think it's alluded to a little bit in there that he's kind of a changed man, and Gonzo is kind of pissed off about it, because Matthews keeps saying like "Spirit be with you" and stuff, and Gonzo's just like doesn't want any of that.
He's more accepting of the spirit.
Yeah. So it's he's gone through a really good story, and we get to that much later, but. I kind of feel like I introduced him too early because you really don't see him until later on, but hopefully you'll remember about Matthews when we get to him again.
So with Matthews' change of heart, you have Grimmer, seems like a younger guy who's coming up. Yeah. Now he's Gonzo's hench. Is Gonzo and Grimmer related?
No.
Is that why he's now the...
No, it could be, though. Gonzo definitely could be his father or grandfather, I guess. But no, they're not related. They just have known each other. So when Matthews, I don't know, you'll hear there's something that goes on there. So a really interesting story that ties to a whole bunch of different things.
And keep it on the note of Grimmer. So for the hockey fans out there, all one of you, two of you, watching, is Grimmer name based off of Stu Grimson, the enforcer?
Stu Grimson. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Stu Grimson used to play for the Mighty Ducks. He was
and
the
other
fighter.
teams.
Yeah, and was an announcer. I mean, he might still be an announcer, but no, Grimmer is not. So actually, funny thing about that was, originally his name was Grimm. His name came from the Grimm fairy tales, the Brother Grimm, because Disney based a lot of the movies off of the Grimm fairy tales. So, Cinderella and Snow White and Seven Dwarfs and all those are kind of based on Grimm fairy tales. So I thought, hey, I'll use a character who's mysterious and dark and call him Grimm. And so that was his name. Well, then stinking NBC came out with a TV show called Grimm.
Stinking NBC.
So I'm like, well, now I got to change because, I don't want to copyright infringe. So I changed it to Grimmer because it's not that big of a change and I could still call him the Grim Reaper. But it sounded very close to another character I had, so then I had to change that character's name, and that character probably went through 5 or 6 different changes before I finally landed on Big O. So that's Big O's name was changed. But yeah, so no, Grimmer is not based on the Grim Reaper or Stu Grimson, which is kind of funny. I don't know, maybe psychological, maybe someone might subconscious.
You got
yeah.
Okay. Moving on from the Western Territories, Techland, would that be related to a certain land of tomorrow?
Maybe.
Oh.
Well, it makes sense, right? When you look at all the lands and how they're, what their characteristics are, you needed to have one that's based on technology, right? That grows and that will spread out to the other lands. And so Techland seemed like the one that made sense for that, and also the concept of a corporation taking over, something like that, and them then kind of becoming a bad guy because they want to acquire all the different lands, and so they would be the ones that would be a little more aggressive, and so you got another bad guys in that land, right? You've got Director Jacqueline, Agent Clayton, you know, and their story being, hey, we're going to create this weapon. You know, they're using the professor to create a weapon to kind of dominate all of them, but then the professor's like, no, you know, they're blackmailing him basically by keeping his wife in prison, but he finally gets to a point, you know, he's not going to do it because, you know, he knows it's wrong. So that's kind of this corporate idea of and Commander Kerr has a great line when they're acquiring Princess Natalie, when they're going after them. She
Commander
says,
Kerr is also a female.
Commander Kerr is a female. Always has been a female. I like that. That's a character that I look forward to when you guys learn more about her too. But you know, she uses this line, something up to not up to something and not just what is it? I can't remember the line. But anyways, it's disciplinary actions basically up to. But that was a term that you would always hear in corporate America. You know,
termination.
Up to including termination or something like that. But the way she says it, it's, you know, I dig that. She's a great character too. She's just all right, whatever. So, and then Agent Clayton, weirdo. Weirdo.
Okay, speaking of,
not that Director Jacqueline isn't all that weird either.
Yeah.
And you're gonna meet even weirder ones in Techland.
Is the professor, since it's like on that certain show back in the 60s where they just call him Professor, does the professor's name Tom Morrow?
No. The professor's name is not Tom Morrow. Nope.
Wah, wah.
Wah, wah. Sorry, folks.
In episode 2, oh, wait, yeah. Oh, no.
No.
I've skipped to a new land
Oh.
without you guys.
Let's bring them along.
Yeah. Okay, so we're actually going to go to a location where you really haven't spoke much about, the tribe.
Yeah.
With Princess Natalie, Running Chavez, Giggling Zamora, and Kenneth. They killed Kenneth.
Copyright. I don't know.
It says a phrase.
Like that. Sure, yeah. The tribe, we really don't get much into the tribe, but, you know, Princess Natalie was very early on in the original story. That was always something that, you know, I wanted to have where the princess gets kidnapped and, you know, needs to get rescued type thing. But I created, I like Princess Natalie because she's not, like, doesn't need to be rescued. She's smart. She can figure things out. So I wanted to kind of have that as being the basis of it, but then I realized, well, the tribe is much more than that, so I needed to create what the tribe was, which you'll find out later. But Princess Natalie, Giggling Zamora, and Running Chavez are you know, in later chapters, you're going to start hearing about the abilities, and their abilities are pretty awesome, and that I wanted to use them to kind of really showcase that. So having them acquired by Techland gave a great opportunity for that. So,
all right.
And Kenneth is you know, you're going to hear a lot more of Kenneth in chapter 2.
So moving on to a different land here. One that you just touched on in the old man's dream, the Splashing Red Rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With the old man and Master Fred, and then
Master Fred, love that.
Sheba. I like Sheba.
So, you know, the layout of the land, you have the Western Territories and Orleans kind of along this side of the river. The tribe and Splashing Red Rock are kind of up in this part of the river, further away from everyone. So, you know, and that's just kind of how things migrated that way. And then it kind of connects around to Orleans this way. But the old man on the ledge, you know, he's a recluse and he's running away from stuff, and really didn't show up until much later in the story. But again, I wanted to introduce, because of feedback I got in early readings, I needed him to kind of introduce more of the idea of the spirit and what's going on. And it also allowed me to bring in Master Fred earlier than I was going to. So, and those are just two really good characters. Again, good friendships there. And a lot of the lands kind of focus on friendships, when it comes to the characters, because I think that's important. But yeah, the old man on the ledge, he's suffering quite a bit, and he's lucky he's got his old friend Sheba there
Speaking of him and suffering and whatnot, you notice. So like him, the old man, Maddog, Doc Moran. They all have the. I can't remember if anybody else really had the big reaction except for the 3 NLA soldiers that get knocked off their horse and get knocked out unconscious. But those 3 seem to have the most reaction to that time.
Right, in episode 2?
Yeah. The others just have those little, a little bit, then others don't have any reaction. What's that correlation?
So, little secret stuff here. When I was writing that, so the way I saw it was, what's going on right then. People who were more in touch with the spirit, who really got it, who understood it, who could use it, were going to feel it a lot more than people who don't believe it or don't care or just don't acknowledge it at all. So people who had a big Maddog and Doc Moran. Doc Moran passes out a little bit. Maddog has the cards going crazy, so they're a little more in tune to it than like King Michael, who there's a slight breeze or something. Mm-hmm. He just doesn't feel anything. Grimmer has that interaction with the old dead tree. So there's a little bit of maybe spirit acknowledgement there or in, but just not enough. And those were only a few of like the interactions of things. So, but it kind of was a tell of who was in touch with the spirit and who wasn't, was the reaction of what's going on there.
So speaking of King Michael only getting a little breeze, let's talk about the kingdom. You got King Michael, Queen Michelle, Merle, Prince Sean, Cat, Rosie, and Belle.
Yeah. So, King Michael again. King Michael, Queen Michelle, early citizens of the lands in the original. Just having this idea of a king who is a micromanager and is worried about everything because the kingdom is huge and there's so much for him to deal with, that he's just always worried about what's going on. And I knew Merle. Merle was an early character as well, but he was old and dying. But so I wanted a character for the king to be able to interact with, who I could see as being an advisor. So the idea of Cat was just like, okay, that's kind of a cool concept, right? You have a cat that appears and disappears. And I mentioned at the end of one of the episodes that I had to cut part of one of the scenes where Cat talks about how he meets King Michael. That'll appear somewhere, I'm sure. But yeah, I thought that was cool. And then Queen Michelle has her sidekick, who's Belle, who really, again, Belle came out of a concept of I wanted to have that interaction with the guards up on top of the big white mountain, or one of them was kind of being annoyed by it, wanted to shoot it. So it's like, okay, well, how do I fit that into the story? And as it began to grow, I'm like, I'm going to have that be a fairy, and then I'm going to have it, that'll be Queen Michelle's friend. And plus, I mentioned this too in the concluding words about going from Techland direct to Jacqueline, where he looks at the big white mountain, and then Belle goes down into the castle, into the kingdom, and is interacting with Queen Michelle, and then you see, Belle goes up and you see the Cat.
Camera.
Yeah, the one camera shot. If you're looking at it like a TV show, it's all flowing through there, and I like that. So when I can do that, I'm going to do that more often. I kind of like how that played out. So that's where that character actually came from. And then I thought it was funny, but it was a pain in the butt, by the way, recording it, because that stupid Belle. Oh my god, pain in the butt recording that.
So coming back off of Belle, but back to King Michael in episode 2, it's mentioned that King Michael wasn't sure who built the kingdom.
Yeah.
Did we ever find out?
Eventually you'll find out. Sure.
So you gotta stay tuned.
Gotta stay tuned. But yeah, I would suppose one of the things that took so long in developing the lands was I was always having to have a backstory. Always got to make sure there's something that if somebody does something, there's a reason for it, and what the story is behind that, and the backstory to all the lands really will be coming soon. In the next couple of chapters, you'll get little hints and stuff. So, and there already are a few if you pay attention.
So, paying attention, it seems like Queen Michelle and Belle are more dog people than cat people. Why
Yeah.
is that?
Well, I just thought that was funny. That's why. Because, they like to gossip. And it's like, oh, God, we better make sure Cat's not around, because he can turn invisible. Plus, I do think that there's a little jealousy that Queen Michelle would have because Cat and King Michael, because they work, Cat needs to be there for King Michael. He's his right-hand man. So it's like, I think there's a little jealousy between Queen Michelle and that, maybe she wants to do that, but Cat is there. But no, I thought that would be funny. So, sometimes that's where it just comes from.
So, I don't think it'll be jealousy for this, but so why did King Michael's first wife leaving him a post-it note saying FYI, and then his daughter leaves him with a post-it note saying FYI, I'm going to go find mom.
Mm.
Why did they leave?
Because I thought it was funny, I guess. I think because the idea of Queen Michelle and King Michael was just the idea that I had, and I knew I wanted there to be a stepmom, right, type thing, and so his first wife had to go, and then the idea of the post-it note comes from early '90s, right? When you would write stuff or something, you write it on a post-it note. FYI, we need you to change it. Well, you put it on someone's desk, right? So that was just a funny thing at the time when I was writing it. The FYI, there's more to life than being a queen. Off to find it, and then the daughter writing FYI, off to find mom. So, and it also shows where King Michael is so focused on the kingdom that something like that is like, okay, and he'll let it go because he's more focused on the king. So it's kind of a little also, telling a little bit about how King Michael is, and that he's keeping a lot of this stuff built up.
Yeah.
So maybe. Yeah. So that was I just also again I did think it was funny.
All right. So
It's all
now
about whatever thing.
moving out of the kingdom.
Out of the kingdom. There's so
Going
much
down-
going on in the kingdom, by the way. But
Yeah. So we're gonna move down into Merchant Valley.
yeah.
With the Neutral Land Army, Captain Hobogun, Sarge, Peter, Ava, Mitch, Tom, Victor, and one of my favorite, Queequan.
Queequan. Oh, no. It's a cute little thing. So, Neutral Land Army also came out of the early readings I had where people didn't know what was happening. So I knew I had to, something is happening and kind of give an idea of the lands. And so that was where Peter, Ava, and Mitch came out of. Was, okay, we'll have this Neutral Land Army patrolling around. And then it created an opportunity, well, I'm going to have something happen while they're doing that. And that scene in the end of episode 1 actually is a couple of scenes that I merged together. Because I wanted, when I knew I wanted that joke with Maddog, I wanted that to go right into the Neutral Land Army scene, so I combined it because I didn't want to separate it up. Anyway, that's just how things work in my brain. But the whole purpose of that was to kind of kick off the things that are happening and the dream scene and the different things that happen in episode 2. And I just thought that was a good way to do it, introducing that concept. The idea of them doing their runs, which not the runs like, in the bathroom, but doing the runs also is an inside joke. So there's a little inside story to that terminology. But it also there's a lot of, Victor and Tom complaining about being old timers and being moved to do things that, why are we doing this? Grumbling, not realizing there is a reason why they're out there, which, we'll find out later. But it's also kind of insinuated to at the end of, I think, episode 7, when they talk about, it's lucky that we were out there. Victor mentions that. And then, of course, Captain Hobogun, gotta love that character. He's in
Captain he's the typical officer. He has to lean on his NCO
NCO.
for everything.
And an NCO
Even when
is
she's
what?
non-commissioned officer,
Okay.
Sarge.
Sarge. Yeah.
So even when Sarge isn't there, he still has to holler. "Ah."
Yeah. Well, he's used to it, right?
Can get
Sarge.
lost in a refrigerator.
He's got a lot of responsibility, Tim. All right, he's got the whole NLA that he needs to take care of. So, but yeah, and again, Merchant Valley, you're going to see more Merchant Valley. That was just kind of a really snippet. Everything's at night, in the darkness. But you do see some lights getting a little brighter. What's going on there? And you also get introduced to you see an ancient one in that, which originally was supposed to happen at the end of that chapter, but didn't happen. I had to end episode 6 instead of end episode 7. So, just a little swap I had to do in my head for some reason. But
Just speaking of the lights getting brighter and the grass is always greener,
yeah,
you have the neutral lands
Yeah.
with the young man.
Mhm.
What's up with that dude?
So the young man is actually the whole story is kind of based on the young man. And originally, and you might notice this in some of the writings, is everything was supposed to happen through the young man's experience. So I didn't introduce. Yeah, good night. So it was like you would meet characters. I wouldn't write a character's name in the description. It always had to be the character would have to be introduced. So like Captain Hobogan introducing himself. Hello, I'm Captain Hobogan, commander of the Neutral Land Army. See, that would be the first time technically that he was supposed to be introduced, was when he talked to the young man. But because the story got pushed back, I had to introduce him differently. So original story, like the first 3 phases, characters were only introduced through dialogue and not through the narration. And then after a while, it got so early stuff. That's what happens. Later stuff, it's through the narration. But the story is about the young man and what his adventures are going to be and what he needs to do and his quests as he moves around. So that was how you're supposed to get to know the land. So yeah, he is very important to everything. But yeah, it drags a little bit. He does a lot of passing out. Of course, through my extensive medical training, I concluded he has a concussion. Quigmore rolls her eyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
More questions? Are we done?
a couple
Okay.
more questions.
Hey.
Do you have a favorite character that you enjoy writing for?
Well, Maddog. I really do
Yeah,
enjoy
Mad
Maddog. For different reasons, Grimmer. I really enjoy Princess Natalie, Running Chavez, and Giggling Zamora. Their stories get really cool and very complicated. Merle's story is really good. And really when I write, I'll write by character, and so it's whatever character. Like if I'm not in the mood, I can't write for Gary because Gary is a sarcastic, slugging dude, and so I can't write for him all the time. I got to be in the mood to write for Gary. But Maddog, I can write a lot for him. Most of you might be upset. I'm gonna let you in a little secret. You don't see Maddog in the next chapter because he goes to bed. So he's an old man.
He's an old man.
But yeah, it's I do enjoy writing for whatever character is in my head, screaming in my head, saying "write about me." That's the one I'm kind of. And you're gonna meet some great characters in chapter 2. Really, they're just some really really good characters. So
All right. So, this is from a phoned-in question.
I phoned in.
I've always wanted to
Hello?
say that. It is from a caller.
Yeah, it's the caller there.
If you could visit one place in the lands, where would it be and why?
Ooh, well, based on just chapter 1, because I don't want to go into the other chapters. Based on chapter 1, probably River's Edge Terrace, because it's got the casino, it's got the restaurant, it's got like the dance club, it's right off the river, it's nighttime, you're outside of Orleans. Probably for chapter 1, it would be River's Edge Terrace. Although Rosie's would kind of be fun because I like the kingdom. There's so much in the kingdom. It would be neat to be there. But Yeah, I think River's Edge Terrace. If I had to pick one place.
What about wherever Princess Natalie puts the casino?
Well, there is a casino getting built, but it ain't by Princess Natalie. Or the time.
So there seems to be a lot of missing people. Mahone, the
Mhm.
judge, Banks, King Michael's first wife and his daughter.
Yeah, I guess so. There are a lot of us.
Do they ever come back?
I don't know. Maybe. We'll see.
When they
Still a
start
lot of
yelling at
writing
you,
to be done.
When
Yeah,
they
we'll
start yelling at you in your
me,
head,
like,
write about me, you bastard.
what happened to me?
Yeah. So this is a question that, since I know when you started working at Disney,
Mm-hmm.
many, many, many moons ago, you worked at a certain restaurant
Mm-hmm.
in Bear Country.
Yep.
Is there a Bear Country in the lands?
Not by name, no. There is no bear country. Sorry. I mean, there is a part of the lands where there are bears that you'll find.
Do they play the banjo?
They may
Blow on
quite
a honey
possibly.
jug?
A lot of Easter eggs in that part of the story, by the way. But no, there's no bear country. There is a country. There's
Sorry,
an area
Matt.
where there's a lot of critters. That we'll say that. And the bears got moved out.
For critters.
Oh man.
Do you envision the lands having a definitive ending, or is it an ongoing saga?
So it's an ongoing saga. I do see an ending to it. I do know how it's going to end. I think the way I'm writing it, I see it as a TV show. Please, someone pick it up. So I have
Except for NBC.
well, yeah, grim. So like I see a number of chapters being a season, I guess. So I do have things that happen within seasons that are big, that I would say, okay, this is a big thing. There is some destruction that goes on. There are people who die. There are things that happen that I think are playable and within a TV show. But even the whole lands themselves, each land could be its own show. You know, when you start meeting more of the citizens, you'll see that each land literally could have its own. They do have their own storyline, so it's like that could be expanded on. So it really can be an ongoing storyline, I think, with this one or
Common
two
thread.
that go common thread. And the young man is definitely a common thread, and then when it starts going back to stuff that happened in the past, that's a common thread through all the lands. You kind of get a little touch on it around the Hold'em table about the Gang of Five. It's like, what the heck happened there, and why can't they come back and stuff. So you find out there's a lot of that gets explained as it goes along. So yeah, I mean, I just hope that people are enjoying. All 5 of you who are listening, who've listened, I hope you're enjoying it. But there is a lot, and I get it. There's a lot of storylines going on. I understand, and that's how when I was putting the episodes together. Episode 1 was long, and I released it, and then episode 2, I was like, well, I have to do, like a previously type thing, and it was taking too long for the audio to edit it, so I thought, well, I'm just going to do it with a video. So that's where the video idea came from. And then I'm like, well, shoot, now I got to add a video to episode 1, so I had to go back, add a video to it, and re-release it, and that's why they all got episode 1, 2, and 3 were released on the December 15th, which is a special day. The first episode was premiered on December 5th, which is also a special day. So from here on out, they're being released on the 3rd and the 17th of every month, because those are special days.
Special.
So the next
a special day.
just keep in tune. What date is it? Oh, the 3rd or the 17th. Hopefully, we'll have another episode come out.
Oh.
Yeah. So hopefully, this explained some of what's going on in the lands. Probably didn't. Hopefully, you didn't follow. Wake up!
Wake
All right. Subscribe,
like,
notification. Turn on notifications. Leave comments if
leave
if-
comments.
Yeah, I like comments.
All 5 of you. Well, 4. I'm here.
That's right. He's one of the 5. So we look forward to you listening to more of the lands, and in the meantime, you know what? Keep the spirit alive. Adios, y'all.
Adios.
We'll holler at you.
We'll holla.